Ja, dit is omtrent.
So wat sê jy het gebeur eintlik met hom?
Weet jy wat? Dit was seker so 6 uur gewees gisterand.
Ja.
Was dit 6 uur? Bietjie vroeër dalk. Was nog nie heeltemal donker nie. Toe kom my swart man daar aan met die sak. Toe dog ons hy wil spinasie kom haal. Toe het ons 'n bietjie groente geplant. Toe gaan ons uit en toe sê hy hy het 'n apietjie daar by hulle by Kompon gekry. Toe bring hom na my want ek maak allerlei diere groot. So toe dink hy nou hy moet hom af my gee en ek weet mense kan dit eintlik doen want myne het ook hulle raak maar 'n bietjie geniepsig as hy ouer raak. Ek weet dit. So het ek kom nou maar vandag werk toe gevat om bietjie net vir troetel en ek weet hy moet eintlik tussen alle apies wees. Kyk kom ons gaan jump in die kar. Baie dankie dat
Baie dankie, hoor.
Baie dankie.
Okay.
Kom in die kar, in die kar, in die kar.
Say hello to Goon. Goon is a 2-month-old vervet monkey. Just a few days ago, Goon's mother was killed.
Oh yeah, that's what you wanted.
Goon is at the Vervet Monkey Foundation, a rehabilitation center for vervet monkeys in South Africa.
See your tiny baby body. God, you're big. Everything looks so good in there.
It is the task of this year's baby mama, Erin, to teach Goon the first and most important step of being an orphan at the Vervet Monkey Foundation. How to drink milk from a bottle.
Come on. Okay. All right. Drops.
At the foundation we have 570 monkeys, plus or minus, because we have orphans coming and going.
We probably average between 15 to 30 orphans a year, which is quite a large number basically to deal with. And unfortunately with them, it's not something you can just take back and hand them back to the troop. We physically got to introduce those to troops and introduce them to foster mothers and things like this to look after them. I've got around 10 local staff members here that are responsible for the daily chores at the foundation, which would involve cleaning all the cages and things like this, making sure the preparation of the food's done correctly, maintenance jobs. Of course, the volunteers also help with chopping up food and preparing food and things like this. And then we're also on call sort of 24 hours a day. Whereas if there's any injury or something like this, we'd actually get called out to go and have a look or capture a monkey or rescue a monkey. Or we get people bringing them in, and we have to give emergency services or treatment to these animals.
For the first 48 hours of Goon's life at the VMF, she is quarantined to the baby cabin. It looks like a bandit has come to visit Goon. Aside from the enclosed troops, there is a mischievous group of monkeys who roam free at the Foundation. They're known as the Bandits. This is the closest Goon has been to another vervet since her mom died, and she's a little nervous. Vervets are an incredibly intelligent species of monkey and can be found throughout eastern and southern Africa. They form tight family bonds and live within a strict system of social hierarchy, led by an alpha female. Vervets communicate using a unique and complex system of body language and vocalizations. They show threat by raising their eyebrows. There's the submissive scream. They lip smack to calm one another while grooming. And of course, there's the friendly hello.
The ecological role of the monkeys is pretty similar to birds, really. You know, a lot of the indigenous bush needs an animal to actually disperse its seeds. Monkeys are very, very efficient in doing this type of thing. So we like to also refer to them as the gardeners in nature, because this is really what they do. They go and help plant little seeds, they help pollinate everything, they control the insect species and things like this, which is very, very important.
What you're wishing for now?
Goon is already a pro at eating solid food. Some of her favorite dinners include papaya, banana, mango, and pear. And of course, no meal is complete without an after-dinner groom session. Good job, Goon. Clean that pear out of Aaron's hair.
Things haven't really changed for primates in this country. We still have a very backward outlook to our nature and the value of nature in this country, unfortunately. So really the farming community looks at these animals as a pest. So does a lot of the residential area look at these animals as something that are pestering them and causing problems.
You have some blind monkeys here, for example, that were shot by pellet guns, and they're juvenile monkeys. There's absolutely no way this monkey could cause you any harm. So it's a very different way of looking at things.
We have done surveys outside of malls and things like this where we've handed out pamphlets or got questionnaires filled in, and we do get a lot of positive results. Of course, we do face a lot of the negativity there, and we get some very hostile people.
It's a lot of shit, man.
Are they causing you problems?
Yes, they do.
What do they do to you?
Come into your house, fuck everything up.
Can I write this down?
Yeah,
They come into
it's a
your
fucking
house?
type of shit. They eat the dog's food, everything.
They eat your dog's food.
Do you shoot them? Do you chase them out of there?
I fucking shoot these bastards.
Yeah.
I killed the fuckers. Killed 25 last week.
You killed 25 last week?
Yeah, fuck them. I
Do you not
killed
think
them.
that's a bit cruel?
I'm not cruel.
We set up a special monkey patrol with an advertised number that we had that farmers and people could actually call us, and we'd go out and investigate the crop damage and things like that. You know, you'd get a scenario of a farmer complaining, you'd go out, spend 10 to 15 minutes trying to find one fruit or two items that have been bitten by a monkey. That just didn't evaluate itself into crop damage as such. The thing is that a household will leave the pawpaws on the tree until they're ripe, and then birds and monkeys and other wildlife will eat them. Whereas our farming community doesn't actually do that. All of the crops and things that we grow are basically picked when they're grass green and artificially ripened. And monkeys' diets are very similar to ours, their tastes are very similar to ours, so they go out and eat ripe stuff. Some of these crops are so vast and so much is being grown, and there is quite a high percentage of waste due to all kinds of factors that the damage that the monkeys can cause is such a low percentage that it's not really measurable. So it seems to be more of a frustration thing, whether it's bad market pricing, whether things aren't just good with the crop, and I think generally things are just going bad for that period of time. And the last straw is seeing this monkey sitting in your land, eating for free, basically. And that just sort of pushes the person over the edge. So that seems to be the general thing at the end of the day.
We work and we have a lot of things to do. So then you see that monkeys are there, and they just come into the vegetable gardens, they will pick a what do you call it, a pumpkin or whatever, and they just run off and leave the pumpkin there with a half-bitten part out of it. Or sometimes you get angry and you get cross, and the only way out is to think of taking the rifle out.
Despite the overwhelming animosity from the local community toward the vervets, the produce that the VMF feeds to the monkeys actually comes from local farms. Most farms have a certain amount of produce that they can't send to market because of physical damage. This food would typically be thrown away, but thanks to arrangements made between Dave and local farmers, much of that waste produce is handed over to the VMF free of charge.
Yeah, we get a lot of help from the community. There's some great people out there, great farmers out there playing their part and willing to help us with their waste and things like this, which helps keep us going. So yeah. At the end of the day, nature can't be a pest. Animals just do what they have to do naturally. It's not that they're doing something to the detriment of humans or go out to persecute us or something like this, or knowingly break into our houses to go and steal our food. There's a lot of things people accuse them of, but a lot of these things are basically human related. It's something we do or humans cause to actually make these animals seem to be a pest. The foundation is located in the Limpopo province, actually out in a little town or area called Letseteli, which is supposed to be a tropical paradise in the end of the day. But this has sort of been overrun now by forestry and uncontrolled farming. So there's very little natural or indigenous areas left in this province basically for our wildlife, forcing these animals basically to go into the town, because this is where you're still finding natural bush. We don't actually have a look at what we've caused. We don't have a look at the habitat destruction and the removal of their forest to actually plant farming lands and things like that, that has created this big imbalance.
Meet Kate and Felicia, the first two orphans to arrive at the VMF this year. Felicia was found stuck to a barbed wire fence and arrived so young that her umbilical cord was still attached.
Let's give you a cuddle then.
Kate's mother was shot and killed by a farmer. Kate was left to the farmer's workers, who kept her in a crate and tried to sell her. Fortunately for Kate, keeping a monkey as a pet is illegal in South Africa, and when Dave threatened to involve the police, the farmhands quickly turned her over to the VMF. Goon can't believe that there are other baby monkeys in this new world, and she's a little overwhelmed. Like any developing nation, South Africa's population is growing rapidly. And more people means more mouths to feed. More mouths to feed means more farms. And more farms means more indigenous ecosystems being destroyed for agriculture. %12 of South Africa's land can naturally sustain farming. But in reality, almost 80% of the land is being used for farming.
When it comes to monoculture farming, basically you're having one crop at a certain time of the year, whereas a lot of your wildlife has to feed throughout the year. So it makes it difficult for a lot of species really to survive and things like this, trying to just survive on one thing. A lot of our animals out there got variegated eaters, so they'd have to have a variety within their diet, the same as humans. And this is becoming harder and harder to obtain. slowly you've seen this expansion. I've also seen a lot of new farms taking over in areas where there used to be beautiful areas of natural bush, going over to avocados and things like this. And you watch it in a couple of years and it's sort of going over to weeds. Nobody actually managed to farm there. The avocado trees have sort of died, and you've got some of the invader species sort of taking over and things like this, which is a bit of a problem.
I'll just take him over, then I'll bring your cage.
What?
This skinny little guy is Debo. A woman was going to keep him as a pet, but she realized it probably wouldn't be in his best interest, so she called the VMF.
What is that? Oh!
A lot of the food that's in the supermarkets is grown in monoculture situations. They're grown with fertilizer, and then they're transported by a tractor. They sit in the sun, the heat and the wind. Then they go to a warehouse, and then they go to a retail, and then they come home. And the difference between there and there is how long. In terms of the organic matter in the soils, I mean, a lot of the monocultures and the huge farms are not putting sufficient humus into their soil. They're not putting organic matter into the soil. Or if they do, it's very, very little. They have all these things to till the soil. What are you doing? You're sort of disrupting the microbes. You're disrupting the soil community by constantly doing that. They're doing all that. They're throwing in the chemicals because it's much quicker and easier. It's hugely expensive in every way. And they've got to make a huge amount of money out of this land. And unfortunately, that's not what happens. The nutrition in the soil, first of all, I think just the fertilizers on their own, they're making the plants grow too fast, because plants need things at certain times which they need to be able to take up from the soil when they're ready for it, which is what humus does. But with fertilizers, they take them in. It's like sugar in tea. You just suck it up, and then they produce growth that is watery.
It's productive in a way, but it's very destructive on the other side. Like it's very destructive on the environment side, and also because they use a lot of chemicals. Those chemicals are health hazard. They are not good for our bodies and so forth. And also they use a lot of very dangerous pesticides to kill the pests, and those chemicals are also not good for human consumption, because even though they say you must eat after a certain period, but those chemicals will still remain on the plant. And many people are getting, different diseases. They don't know where all those diseases are coming from. Most of those diseases are coming from the food that we eat.
But the other big thing is that there are hardly any insects in the communities. They're scared of them. They think they're vermin. They've got sort of cultural beliefs around them, like with spiders, snakes and frogs and lizards. They flatten them with spades. So those things, we've got to explain to people that they all come to the garden, and they're coming there with a reason. They're coming to eat the pests that are eating your plant.
A day after Debo, Scotty arrived. Scotty was found crying alone in a field, beneath a tree, where her mother lay dead in the limbs above. Her troop was nowhere in sight. Scotty will not stop crying for her mom, and it's causing a lot of stress with the other babies. Goon and Debo call out to Scotty. Some bandits stop by to check out the commotion. Goon, the oldest and most independent of the orphans, seems to be taking Scotty's sorrow to heart. Eventually, Aaron coaxes Scotty to sleep. But Felicia is so stressed out that she grabs onto Goon as if Goon is her mother. Debo has had enough of all this sadness, and he decides he's going to climb his first tree.
Sorry, but that's not yours. You can have your...
Beyond the giant food farms, arid desert land, small towns, cities, and sprawling villages, you will find a peculiar sight. Man-made forests filled with endless rows of pine and eucalyptus populate the mountain ranges. These trees are not indigenous to South Africa, and the majority of these plantations were planted well over 100 years ago for the mining industry. For the most part, no new plantations are being planted. This is in thanks to the South African Forestry Company and recent international regulations, such as a tax on water usage and a requirement to keep 1/3 of all forestry area designated as indigenous forest. They also monitor illegal forestry activity, and GMOs and pesticides have been banned. But, in many ways, the damage to these ecosystems was already done long ago.
When I was in Durban about 3 years ago, I walked through a eucalyptus plantation, and you can hear nothing. There is absolutely not a sound, and it's so scary. All you can hear is the sound of the creaking of the bark on the wood. There's no crickets, and there's no birds, there's nothing. So it is an ecological dead zone because essentially as soon as you plant that monoculture, there is no home there. It is no longer home for those ecological systems. Nothing can live there anymore. There's no food. I think people generally overlook the physical value of a lot of things. And a tree is pretty incredible in itself. And a group of trees is even that much more incredible because it's an ecosystem. If you go into a space and you cut down all the trees and you plant monoculture crops or trees or whatever you want to repurpose that space into, or development or shopping malls or mining, whatever it's going to be, as soon as you've removed everything, that's it. It's gone. It only comes back if you bring it back, and it takes a lot of time and energy to bring it back. And the likelihood is there's an element of extinction there. You don't know if there isn't something that is specifically unique to that area. You don't know if there's something that is a keystone species in that area. If we cut down a rainforest, the rain stops. It's not the rain that creates the rainforest, it's the trees, it's the ecosystems. I suppose there's a necessity in the world to have the resource of wood. In every way, shape and form, we rely on it. It also creates massive amounts of jobs. I suppose there's a massive export market around it as well. It's this necessary evil in South Africa.
Scotty is still quarantined in the baby cabin, but a sense of unity and calm has come over the other orphans. Goon spends the evening watching the adult vervets in James' troop.
Is you?
Goon, Kate, Debo, Felicia, and Scotty's lives are all about to change. Today they will meet their new foster family, Scro Troop. Scro is led by an alpha female named Zola and is home to 30 vervets. This is the first time the troop is receiving orphans, and everyone is at the fence to check them out. By the look of it, the mothers couldn't be more excited. Male vervets at the foundation are vasectomized, so babies are a big deal. Alice and Shosanna give Zola a big congratulatory groom, because as the alpha, Zola has first choice of which baby she wants.
Yeah, go ahead.
Scotty is still a wreck, and her screaming immediately brings tension to the troop. In the wild, a female vervet would take caution over approaching a screaming baby, because of the likelihood that baby's mother would come to defend her child. Scotty doesn't know this and keeps screaming for her own mom, which makes the adoptive mothers a little weary of the tiny orphan. Debo, the ever-compassionate one, tries to calm Scotty. Well, it worked for a second. Goon is just happy to have some fresh forage and other monkeys to look at. Kate tries out her climbing skills on all the new branches. Scotty finally takes a break for a quick cuddle with Aaron and some time to complain. And Felicia, well, she's just Felicia. Debo, the youngest and only male of the orphans, is the first to get proper attention from a mom. Goon notices and takes advantage of the situation. For Debo and Goon, this is a big moment. beyond all the hatred, some people possess a more sinister and superstitious belief about the monkeys.
We did a public perception survey and it came back as about 95% of the school population believed that monkeys were associated with witchcraft.
Not exactly monkeys are witches,
right?
But people do use monkeys to do their evil ways.
Do you tell them that the monkeys...
I don't talk about monkeys because of the nightmares.
The hands of monkeys are used to kill the small children. If you can take the African, if they can take the small children and get to the mountain where there is the baboons and the monkeys, when the child comes back home, she'll do like this. The child will do the action which is done by the animals. Or maybe if the monkey can eat the manku, half of the manku, then the child came and eat that saliva, because the saliva of the baboon and the monkey are not good for the human. She takes the bones, all the bones, they cut it into small pieces. Okay, they take another tree and they mix with those bones, then they bend. And then the child will inhale the smoke.
There have been things, even in the newspaper, whereby people have put a monkey in a bucket and they've actually burnt the monkey because they've said that it's actually talking to the people and it's a witch.
In the rural villages, the education standard is really terrible. I mean, a 12-year-old won't have the same education as an 8-year-old in Europe. And there is no concept of preserving the environment because it's never been in their education. Well, we bring the kids here. We get 8 kids every week and they stay with us for a week. And then they interact with these animals. They help feed them, they clean the animal camps, they are actively involved with these animals all the time.
We use this animal to give them a second chance and to show the children that, well, an eagle that cannot fly is very sad in a way, but we can still give him love.
And these animals are now ambassadors, for the rest of the animals. So they can't be rehabilitated, but they can serve a purpose as an education medium.
So the goal is, yes, through the week of environmental education here is obviously to protect wildlife and to get them to spread the word in their village. So hopefully one day we will have birds in the village at least. And then to create a better future for them through conservation.
It's been 4 days since the babies met Scro Troop, and all the monkeys seem to be pretty content. Even Scotty has stopped screaming at everyone. The babies are now ready to learn the next step of the foster mother program: how to drink milk from a bottle inside of a small feeding cage. Goon loves food, so a plate is placed inside the cage to help coax her in. But at this rate, it might be a while before she gets it. So, how about a little playtime instead? Felicia's got her meanest play face on. Sneak attack! Kate thinks she's so tough. Debo thinks he's a kangaroo. Gotta clean that poop off your tail.
this country, it's always said that hunting is what actually started conservation, and the reason they started it were they were so scared with all the animals that they were actually killing that there wouldn't be any animals left for them to shoot in the future. We've turned conservation into something to make money, and I think unfortunately that's what conservation's ended up being. It's become a dirty word. You're conserving because you want to kill the stuff later on. You're not conserving it for generations into the future, or conserving it because we know we have to.
It is an industry and a business, yeah. In fact, in the last 20 years in this area, when I first came here, I think there were 75 private lodges where you could book and go on safaris, and now there's 480, so...
Look, I don't think one should have a look at an animal as having an economic value at all. It's irrelevant whether it makes an economic impact or not. Just from the very reason that this animal is here in the first place gives it a right to be there. From the economical point of view, though, yes, animals do bring in finances. People love seeing animals. You know, you get a lot of controversy about people complaining about monkeys, but people love seeing them. I mean, when you go to Kruger National Park, when they go to some of our beach areas and things like this, and people see monkeys, they're laughing, they're enjoying it, they love them being around there.
You know, well, it has an economic value. A tourist wants to come and take a photograph of an impala. It might only be 10 cents, but it is an economic value there, you know, for a tourist to see an impala, see a giraffe. You know, it's sad to say, but, you know, on our balance sheets, all of us on this reserve, the animals are an asset line. You know, they add value to our reserve. You know, but then that asset needs to work. You know, it's horrible. I mean, I've done my business stuff, so I know it just, and it's sort of like that elephant actually, he's not doing a hell of a lot in the way of physical working, but just his presence is generating money. You know, and so therefore he's generating money, therefore we're willing to keep him alive. But if you suddenly said to me that, you know, there's no more money coming in because of that elephant, well, what's the point of the elephant? That wouldn't be my personal attitude, but that might be a lot of people. You know, it's sort of a horrible concept, you know. You've got traditional beliefs mingling in with, you know, capitalism and trying to create wealth, blah, blah, blah. It's a mess.
The moms have not been paying much attention to Felicia, but they love Debo and groom him through the fence. As a volunteer tries to get Kate into the cage, Goon decides to go in on her own. Once Goon can drink from the bottle inside the cage, it means she is ready to meet Zola face to face with no fence between them.
Consumer culture wants us simply to be consumers and to make money to consume and profit, capitalism. So that's brought us a lot of commodity and comfortability, sure, but it's also one of the sad truths, and one of the facts is that it's led to this huge disconnection from nature, which is part of ourselves. The relationship that we used to have with plants used to focus a lot on medicines. We used to live in nature. Nature used to be our home. So plants were fundamental for hunting, for religious purposes. If people are locked into their egos, we have the world that we live in now, which is unsustainable. It's doomed for destruction. We are in a crisis on the planet. Most people might not realize, but we are literally in a crisis in terms of sustainable food production. So the egoic model of self and self-protection is not going to continue our species. I don't see how it can, because it's all about protecting oneself and not being aware or taking responsibility for the whole system.
just as life for the orphans seemed to be going so well, Debo fell very ill.
Just giving him some extra probiotics and aloe vera juice for his tummy. He started having watery diarrhea and just became really lethargic. And then yesterday he was vomiting. He didn't keep any food down yesterday, so with the milk that he was having, he just threw it all back up again. And this morning he had some carrot juice and cucumber juice, which he kept down, but he didn't keep down any milk. So now he's having diluted milk, which he's kept down all afternoon, which is good. But it's not easy getting him his meds. It's very watery diarrhea now. Oh, if he's sitting in it all day. He hasn't passed it as frequently today.
After 3 days of struggle, Debo passed quietly in the night. No one knows what caused his sudden illness, and with monkeys, it's always hard to say. But what is known is that Debo was loved immensely until the bitter end. Because of heavy rains and flooding, the rest of the babies are moved back to their old enclosure, which means away from the moms. Aside from Goon's insatiable appetite, the mood is pretty somber.
We're not thinking of 200 years ahead, we're thinking about 20 years ahead. And I feel like we need to shift our headspace around this and start really thinking a lot broader in terms of our footprint on the planet. Because if it's just about the now, and if it's just about the money, then we're going to ruin these ecosystems. And there's only so much nutrient we can take out of that earth before it becomes a real dead zone and nothing else can grow there.
It takes a much long time for people to change their behavior, because most of the people, they don't realize that until we are into a crisis, a sort of a crisis. That's when they realize that they are doing something wrong.
As if Goon knows there is no time to waste, she drinks from the bottle inside the feeding cage. And following Goon's lead, Kate is the next to learn. Which means Kate and Goon will be the first two orphans to be adopted by foster mothers.
There's something really beautiful about simplicity. There's something very necessary about smaller and less. And I feel like because there's such a majority of South Africa that are disadvantaged and are previously disadvantaged, there's like a whole nother shift that still needs to happen in order to get all of these people that need to step into a place of being educated and running water and having toilets before it's a case of saying, let's simplify it. They're already simple in the terms of their consumptive behavior, you know. If anyone needs to simplify, it's the people that have got a lot.
I think the values that are instilled in us in society, if we could change fundamentally in the education system those values to cooperation, patience, you know, having tolerance, all those fundamental principles, then we would literally live in a society, or could live in a society, where people don't act all the time to get one-upmanship on each other.
It's a totally materialistic world. I don't know how you get them out of that. I don't know how you do it. But we've got to have examples. We've got to have shining examples.
Natasha teaches mentally handicapped kids in the small town of Springfontein. Her curriculum is very simple. Teach the kids the skills they need to survive in the world.
Well, it's basically poverty and subsistence. I feel sustainability, that the kids in my class, they must be sustainable, be able to sustain themselves, you know, be able to have clean water, have a house. They must be able to knit, they must be able to make their own clothes. They must be able to weld. Any skill, anything possible that you can make money or you can help yourself later on in your life is very important as well. So anything worthwhile, useful and sustainable, you know, as a learning project was important. And anything that's available, any resources that were available as well, because that limited our, you know, we couldn't do massive things either. But anything that was available, and farming is available, you know, water is available. So let's, you know, make sure that every kid in my class has got food. Nobody must go hungry. And it's a skill they can use for their whole life. But from a little patch around the tree to have a whole garden, the whole backyard is now just, you know, food security.
There are ways of farming to farm with nature, which has to become the thing of the future.
There are ways of making ecosystems, food forests, even macro systems that are incredible, that are based on how ecology should work, rather than your monoculture, grid form, petrochemical fertilizers. You're using the entirety of the system to feed itself.
Soil for Life is a small company based in Cape Town, founded by Pat Featherstone. The business is about teaching people how to sustainably grow food in any area.
So our Soil for Life methodologies basically work on environment and an aspect of the people as well. So it's basically looking at where you can maximize food production in the smallest possible space. In 18 square meters, you can keep a family of up to 6 people with a constant supply of fresh vegetables around the year. So first of all, it's about enriching the soil. So it's about putting organic matter into the soil. So it can be all the organic waste from your home. It can be all the leaves and the grass clippings and all the tea bags and the egg boxes and the egg shells and bones and all those kind of things which normally go into the garbage can actually build your soil. We don't do monocultures here. We grow polyculture. We grow, all our beds are planted so that you've got various different types of crops, and they're all companion planted, so it all works well together. So for instance, we don't put green peppers with parsley, because the green peppers won't do anything. The parsley will be fine, but the green peppers don't like parsley. So we're actually working with nature and how it goes. It's not just a case of growing them for the plant, it's also growing them for the soil. So it's looking at the deep rooters and the shallow rooters and all those sort of things that'll work together.
This is the final step of the foster mother program. Zola waits patiently by the fence. She will be the first to enter. A few final drinks. The latch comes off the door. And the mothers are allowed to enter the enclosure. Worried little Kate hides inside the feeding cage, sucking her thumb. Goon is nervous, but more confident than Kate, who tries her best to look big and tough. And it looks like Goon may have found a mom. For the next couple of months, potential foster mothers will come and go from the intro cage. They will get to know the babies intimately. Once Goon and Kate are 3 months old, then Zola and another high-ranking female will be allowed to take the babies into the main enclosure to meet the rest of the troop. And here comes Kate. Seems she's finally found her confidence.
Somehow a reversal has to be done. We have to start looking at how do we start planting indigenous bush outside the town again, making our area back to the tropical paradise to get these animals a place to live and a place to forage.
I believe you can bring deserts back. If you can add water and if you can create a space where you can reduce the heat, just cool that space a little bit, I think you can bring anything back. But it just takes some human intervention, some innovation, some appropriate technologies, and then some sweat and passion and horsepower to make it happen. We host reforestation festivals that get hundreds of people together to plant, to share, to bang drums, to put face paints on, to wave flags, and to have a really good time in nature and creating nature while they're doing it by putting thousands of trees into the ground.
We need to start going back in our lives.
Over the past few weeks, Kate and Goon have fallen in love with their foster mothers. Anna has decided to adopt Goon, and Zola has adopted Kate.
The monkeys that I've seen here, every single one of them has gone through something. Every single one has had a terrible start in life. We need to bring back a whole ecosystem that is a paradise for these animals. The VMF has a vision, a big dream, and it's called the Vervet Forest. The Vervet Forest is going to be a 300 to 500 hectare area of land. It's going to be full of indigenous forest. It's not just going to be a rehabilitation site for the release of vervet monkeys. It's going to be a thriving ecosystem.
Well, look, the forest is not going to just be something for vervets in the end of the day, although it will be set aside really for them. It will be a protected area. On it as well will also be facilities for education, so we can actually teach children a little bit about the wildlife and what's going on.
We need to educate people about human-wildlife conflict. We need to change people's perceptions. We need to teach compassion.
That will all be basically going along the line of teaching people how to live again with wildlife, or be part of wildlife and things like this, which I think is very, very important.
The big day has finally arrived. Foster mothers Anna and Zola will take Goon and Kate out into Scrow so the babies can meet the troop. Goon and Anna go first. Kate waits, and Goon looks right at home. Soon it's Kate and Zola's turn. The babies will adopt the rank of their mother, which means Kate is now an alpha in the troop, and Goon's pretty high ranking as well. Much to Anna's dismay, Goon wastes no time climbing to the highest branches of the tallest tree. Kate sticks on the ground with Zola and tests the trees cautiously. Life is good in Scrow Troop. Now it's up to Goon, Kate, and the rest of the female monkeys to wait patiently for the next set of orphans to meet the moms.
The world is this big, beautiful bubble of oxygen and nitrogen and carbon dioxide and all these other elements, right? And bacteria and living things. And if we have a major extinction, I think human beings are really the only ones at stake here. Sure, we're going to lose a lot of wildlife, but once human beings are dead and gone, there will be a whole nother progression. You know? And in 1 million years from now, perhaps we will have this blue planet in the middle of this abyss that will have different biodiversity, which will be incredible. So we need to adapt or we're going to die. And I think there's something really beautiful in that. I'm not worried about that. Like, I'm just like this grain of sand in all this beautiful craziness.
I'm looking at it in a positive way. I really am looking at it in a positive way. I believe that there's huge hope for the human race.
People can start helping the environment and animals in many, many ways. The biggest thing that I can think of on an individual basis, what you can do, is change the way you eat and consume.
I think our biggest issue is probably worrying more about ourselves than worrying about everybody else. You know, we always think somebody else should be doing something. We don't want to make a difference. We don't want to change, but we expect other people to change. And that's very, very worrying. I think we should be looking at ourselves and saying, what difference can I make?